Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is BryanCPSteele and I will be your nerd today and every other day that you watch one of my silly little shows. So, I know last time we met I was in rare form and needed to get a bunch of things off my chest. Well, today I want to get back to brass tacks and talk about industry stuff, talk about stuff that I have been doing as a freelancer, and what actually took me away from my channel for a week. We'll get to that in a second. I need to fix my microphone too, because please ignore the weird sounds you might be hearing. My microphone pop screen is heavy and metal, and knocked things over a little bit. So we're gonna fix that. All right, now. Hopefully, you guys will be able to hear me just fine, and I won't feel like I'm talking in a wind tunnel anymore. Also, you have to pardon me a little bit. I think I might be coming down with a cold. I have a little bit of a warble to my voice and a bit of a sniffle to my schnoz. So, I hope that is just, maybe like a weird rainy day allergy or something. Who knows? All right, so let's get into the week in Bryan. Technically, it'd be 2 weeks in Bryan, but it's mostly the same stuff. I was most of last week and all of last weekend. I was away at Winter Fantasy in Fort Wayne, which we'll talk about as part of this show. So I didn't get a chance to really play any games aside from what I played at Winter Fantasy. So this upcoming week, however, I've got a recording of the Godfall live stream, the Godfall actual play, which I believe that's on the More Than Dice podcast. I would need to take a look to make sure I got that right, but I think it's on the More Than Dice podcast. I've got my Waking Realms game, where we're the heroic cat monk on Friday, which will be tonight for you people who are watching on the day this comes out. And then this weekend, I think we're going to have some board games. I don't know for sure. We are dealing with a handful of teenager dramas, so we will see. We'll see how all that pans out. Having two teenagers is an adventure. We'll say. So that's aside from convention stuff. That's all my gaming stuff. Work-wise, I've actually been really hard at it. Not only did we have Renegade Con, the digital. The online digital convention where we basically get to talk about products and when things are coming out and spoil some art, tell you about some things. That was this last weekend. I am so happy that we finally we got to talk a little bit about Across the Stars for Power Rangers, but a lot of that was information that a lot of people already had. From last year's RenCon because things got slowed down and the book is finally getting ready to release. But we did get a chance to talk about the Time Is Now, a Transformers full adventure arc that will bring your characters either through like 1st through 5th or 2nd through 6th. As far as levels go, that is going to be a really cool book. I know a lot of people are like, I don't do adventures, I just do everything my own homebrew or improv or whatever. I still think a lot of Transformers GMs are going to want to pick this up because there is going to be a ton of really cool threats and obstacles and interesting setting locations, a couple of pieces of equipment. There's going to be a bunch of cool stuff in there that I think any Transformers Essence 20 game can use. But I do think that a lot of people are probably going to actually go ahead and use it for what it's for. But then we also we got to drop the fact that something is going to exist, and that's Finster's Monster-Matic cookbook for Power Rangers, which is we didn't Scott, the Renegade's owner, is going to talk a little bit more about it on March 1st. Ignore the giant loud car. Scott's going to talk about it on March 1st on a little special, video review of some things. But I can at least say this: Finsters is it's a monster collection. So it's basically a monster manual for Power Rangers. I think other SS20 games are probably going to. I won't say that they'll pick it up because Power Rangers monsters are pretty weird. And while there are definitely some monsters in that book that could easily work against Transformers or G.I. Joe, or I guess just depending on how you're running it to a certain extent, My Little Pony, the book is definitely geared towards a Power Rangers setting. But it also has some game stuff in it. I believe the only thing that we mentioned at RenCon was rules to play Psycho Rangers, which I'm personally excited about because it's something that I've been planning since pretty much the game was being envisioned. Like when the team was just starting, one of the things I said is I want, G.I. Joe's going to get to be able to play Cobra, Transformers are going to be able to play Decepticons, Power Rangers need to be able to play Psycho Rangers. And I got my wish. I was able to design them. And I'm really, really happy with the final results. So much so that I'm working on something else that involves them currently. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's got so much in it that I think even though we know that Jump Through Time, another Power Ranger source book that I've done, is, I don't want to say on hold, but it's much later than we thought it was going to be. I think between Across the Stars and Finster's Monster Manic Cookbook, Power Ranger fans are going to be very happy for a while. They will have many months of great content to add to their games. So that was cool about out of RenCon. There's still a few other things that we can't talk about yet on multiple levels and multiple settings. But who knows? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what Scott's going to talk about on March 1st. I have a few ideas of things that he's probably going to think about, but I don't know that for sure because I'm not privy to that kind of information. We'll see. But work-wise, aside from RenCon, I have been doing some preliminary novel work on my Shadowrun book. What else? I was just talking about. For Renegade, I have been pushing out. I've done several book pitches. I've been doing a lot of helping with products that aren't source books, if that makes any sense. Basically, Renegade has a lot of game aid products for their various different lines. And for some of the people who might have a lot going on, that ends up being kind of a, I'll get to it, planning out these smaller products. And so this last week, I've actually been able to help with two of those. Giving me an opportunity to not only see how some of the other products and some of the other settings and licenses are made, but it gives me an opportunity to take some things off of my superiors' plates, so they are not quite so overstressed and overbooked. I did get to proof a couple of books that are headed to the printer soon, and it is super cool to see them in their final PDF form with all the art and everything. That it's always nice to look through and make sure the post-edit development team didn't change too much or make it not feel like your own work, but they still cleaned up the language and made it look so pretty. So I'm really excited. The next couple of months from Renegade has got some really cool stuff coming out. Speaking of really cool stuff coming out, Warzone. Warzone Eternal. We have been hard at work. You can tell that we are getting to the fuse is getting down to the end by the bomb. We have been full steam ahead on production of demo minis. We brought two new employees on, but I don't want to get too deep in that because, especially for you Warzone fans that are only watching for tidbits of Warzone information, is I'm going to dedicate next week's episode to the ramp up for Warzone. So you'll want to keep that in mind, that we are going to do. I'm going to do a Warzone Eternal dedicated episode next week, or at least that's the plan. Unless something else crazy, hops out, jumps in. That's still the plan. But yeah, so that's pretty much it professionally. Personally, like I said, juggling some teenage issues, and the diet kind of got put on hold while I was at Winter Fantasy because it's very hard. Even though I did have a really awesome Airbnb, and I was able to focus my food budget on groceries, it's still hard for a handful of days to kind of go low carb when you're on weird sleep cycles and you're only cooking for yourself, and it's a thing. So, but I'm back at it. I don't think I slid very far, just because I did eat pretty well while I was there. I wasn't eating just a bunch of junk. Yeah. So, I guess that's it. Oh, that's not it. It is, so this is the first episode in February. So we get to do I have already done the random drawometer out of the January videos for January's Comment Raffle winner. And that actually comes from episode 174. Ola Ingvar Sten, or Stena, depending on. I'm pretty sure it's Ola Ingvar. You win. You dropped in a comment that you were going to be at Adepticon, that you were going to see me there, and your comment came up in the Randomizer. So congratulations! I will, when this video comes out, I will be posting on your comment that you won. Now, with your name being either probably Norwegian, but it's possibly Swedish. I don't know if you are in the States or if you were over home in Scandinavia. If you are, tusen tack. If you are not, and you are in the States, either way, go ahead and you're going to give me your address to ship something to you. If you are going to be at Adepticon, though, since it's just next month, if you want, I can box this up and save it and bring it to Adepticon and just hand it to you. So that is up to you. Either way, congratulations, Ola, and I will be in touch to get you the information so you can get in touch to me so we can make your prize raffle manifest. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Real quick, before I get into Winter Fantasy, I did have one thing that I wanted to talk about. So one of my co-players in the Godfall D&D homebrew stream that I play in every, I don't know when the podcasts come out, but I know I play in it every other Thursday. Her name is Erica. She is awesome, and she helped with the editing of a D&D product called Judge Phil's Zine of Goodies. And they went ahead and sent me a handful of the first couple. Sent me the electronic copies of the first couple issues, and it's neat. It's a fun magazine. It's a fun fanzine that's got some very cool stuff in it. The very first one actually has a unique D&D Warlock patron. Unique is a way to put it. And so you should totally go check them out. They're like I said, it's called Judge Phil's Zine of Goodies, and it's put out by Meridian Games. I will put their website link in the description of the video. Please, please, please go check them out. And if you buy any of their stuff, if you pick up any of their stuff from their website, go ahead and let them know that the Professional Nerd sent you. No discounts or anything at this time. They're not a sponsor, but I like to make sure people know that hey, your attentions were not misplaced. So yes, please, please, please go check them out. Judge Phil's Xeno Goodies. Even if you just get that first episode or that first edition, that first issue, I think it's worth it. So please go check them out if you're a D&D fan, and support your fellow creatives. All right, speaking of supporting creatives, speaking of creatives in general, let's get on the topic at hand. I'm going to take a quick sip. Okay, so Winter Fantasy. Winter Fantasy is a convention that takes place, a role-playing convention that takes place in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It is put on by Baldwin Games, and there are friends of mine who I love very dearly involved with that convention that suggested that I go and check it out because it's so close to my home. And I had mentioned this convention to Jordan, our marketing, the Renegade Games marketing guy. Well, he's not marketing. I don't know if he's marketing his online presence. I'm not sure what Jordan's actual title is, other than, badass cool guy. But Jordan and I were talking about it, and that if I were to go, I should bring some Essence 20 stuff with me and try and, kind of test the waters to see how this place would take to playing some Essence 20. The show is a long one. It starts on a Wednesday and ends on a Sunday. And by starting on a Wednesday, it actually has gameplay that happens Wednesday night. That for a small convention, and by small I mean there were less than 200 people there. I would probably put them close to 120, 130. I don't know the actual tally of heads that walked in the door, but I would put it about that number wise. It takes place in the Fort Wayne Convention Center, which is actually a funny story. So I go to the Fort Wayne Convention Center to check in and get my badge and all that stuff. And I'm walking around, and I'm sitting here. I'm like, I know this place looks familiar. And I just couldn't put my finger on it. But I also couldn't figure out, why would I come up to the Fort Wayne Convention Center ever? And then I turned the corner and saw a hallway. And it was a hallway that 20 years ago, I stood around listening to some, a WizKids rep talk about hero clicks. Just off to the left is where Bryan Steele and I played the prototypical, prototype War Machine until 1 a.m, drinking, bad free beer. It was the last time I had been to the Fort Wayne Convention Center was 20 years ago when I went with a comic book shop that I was buying into, and where I met the guys from Privateer Press, where I got my first paying job, where I won my first awards, where ... So literally this place, I won't lie. I know I'm an emo guy, and there's many times where my emotional heartstrings get yanked for no reason. I stood in that hallway for about 5 minutes, just kind of reminiscing about the path that has led me to where I'm at, and I got teary-eyed, just because the number of decisions that I would never have realized to take that ended up putting me on the path that got me to the place I am right now. And that is a professional game designer, a professional author, a full-time writer, a full-time gamer. I would have support that I'm supporting my family completely. I would have never in a million years, even that day standing there pushing around unpainted minis with Bryan Steele, I would have never thought that that turned into this. So anybody who's been a part of that, the karmic wheel, whatever, thank you. And that moment will never not be a part of my heart and soul. So, Fort Wayne Convention Center, I get there Wednesday. This actually starts so Winter Fantasy as a show is, I would give it 2 grades. If you are going for the purposes of playing new things, or if you are going as an exhibitor to try and sell stuff, or if you are going as a game industry person and trying to peddle a new game or a game that is not D&D, this show would be a hard D+. It is not the show for you. However, if you are there to have great camaraderie, if you go as a gamer to play awesome D&D for hours on end, sometimes with the same group in multiple sessions, with a great track record, fun GMs, and management that really does understand how a D&D kind of club is supposed to be put together, then this show would get an A, because that's really what it felt like. I got there Wednesday. Let's back it up. Before the show, when I realized I was going, I reached out to the showrunner, one of the main guys, who I understand had some medical issues and stuff going into it, so that may have definitely lent into some of this. But long story short, there was several, like almost 2 months of radio silence, no responses, just a dreadful lack of communication, and posting on their Facebook page yielded with just waits. It wasn't until almost just like 2 weeks before the show that I finally got a hold of somebody that said, oh, well, the only way you're going to talk to anybody is over on the Discord channel, which there was no way to know that. The communication to try and run an event that was not a D&D Adventurers League event was abysmal. And I'm not saying these guys are bad people. I'm just saying that this particular instance, it really did shine that this show focuses on D&D. It is a D&D based show. Yeah, there were a couple of other people that were running some non D&D things, but having talked to them, it sounded like they had planned running those things 6-8 months beforehand, and they already kind of knew who the people, like they were running these events specifically for people that they knew were going to the show. Again, people they had talked to on the Discord channel, that kind of stuff. So when I got to the show, it was a little bit of a surprise that I did not have a GM's badge. That the badge I had purchased, that ended up being reimbursed because I was signed up to GM a bunch of events. But it was just a basic everyday player badge. None of my events, while they were in the system to be able to be ticketed, none of my events were on the event infographic. The only way for you, they didn't have a booklet or anything to page through and randomly see, oh, hey, here's a thing. There was just the online service, and if you didn't know what to search for, you would have had to page through every single page of events and find mine specifically, and you'd be like, this is the one that I want to do. So yeah, that was hard, and I'm sure some of it has to do with the fact that the miscommunication of trying to get the events in, but basically I got there Wednesday and I listened to the opening speech, which was awesome. I love hearing people who are passionate about games But it occurred to me that this opening speech was not an MC talking to the crowd of people, hey, welcome to Winter Fantasy. It was the MC, the person running the show, talking to people who already knew what they were doing. It almost felt, rather than a convention, it felt almost like a D&D club that digitally meets every week, and then every year they get together. Like, this is like their one get together in person, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that for someone who is just randomly showing up to this show, it would be very, very easy to get overwhelmed and suddenly realize, I don't know what's going on. If I didn't sign up for events, I don't know what events to do. I don't know what I'm doing. A lot of these people had their events lined up months ago. They knew exactly what they were going to do. They knew the groups that they were going to play with, and they knew the groups they were going to play with every day. Because one of the things that this show does, which I think is super, super cool, and I tried to do it with Essence 20, but it backfired, is they have basically an arc, a story arc, that you start off. Your first game session is like kind of the introduction to the story. Then you have a second, a third, and I think a fourth game session, and then on the last day you have the or a second and third, and the last day you have the big epic conclusion, which is actually a super group, multiple tables all fighting at the same time in the same general scene that can affect one another. It was really cool from a D&D standpoint. That is awesome. And it was what I was trying to do, minus the multiple table thing, for SS20. Is Wednesday night I had a character creation session, basically, so I could walk anybody who wanted to play in the SS20 games from that point forward. Anybody who wanted to play that, we could get them their character made. It was just a general SS20 character creation session to get people ready to play in the games over the rest of the week. And no one showed up because they didn't know that it existed. It wasn't on the infographic. Nobody bought tickets for it. No one showed up. So I sat there. Not to mention, I didn't have a table assigned to me. I had to go find somebody, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I guess we'll just put you over here." And so like even if there were walk-ups to this show, like just randos, they would have no idea what I was doing there. I sat my books out with covers facing forward. Had dice laying around. I wanted to make sure that people knew that I wasn't just sitting there having my dinner. I wasn't sitting there just, taking up space, that was an event. They had no way of knowing that. Even the people who were running the show had no concept or recollection of what I was doing. So Wednesday comes and goes, and I get back to my Airbnb, which, by the way, was super cheap, but it was like the entire bottom floor to a house. Like, I had 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a full kitchen. It was crazy. I didn't think it was that big. So I went to the grocery store and I got groceries and filled up the kitchen and got ready, because I knew I was going to have to get a lot of work done over that weekend too, because RenCon was happening. I set my green screen up, got everything ready for my digital panels, but it was that night. I talked to my wife and I was like, if I don't, if nobody's, nobody was here for session 0, if nobody shows up to tomorrow's, session 1, chapter 1 of the game, it's not even going to be worth going to the show for chapters 2 and 3. The standalone games, nothing is sold. I'm just really wasting my time and money here. I was really low. I was really glum, and throw in the fact that my wife was having kind of a rough weekend at home. It was, maybe I should just, pack up and head out. Yeah, the money's already been spent, but that's fine. I might be able to use my time better elsewhere. But I did say, hey, I'm gonna show up tomorrow to my event and see what's up. Well, luckily, I get there, and 2 fellow Essence 20 designers, Ben Heisler and Dr. Page. I just completely drew a blank on Page's last name. Lightman. They showed up. Apparently, they're part of the Winter Fantasy crew, and they play every year. They have a great time, and we were able to. We were standing around for a few minutes while I was waiting to find out what table I was gonna have my event at, because they didn't know. They being the Winter Fantasy people, and Ben and Paige basically said, "Hey, if your event's not going to happen, why don't you come play D&D with us?" And I was like, I don't want to impose. I hadn't bought any tickets. You know, I don't want to just like shoehorn my way in. And they're like, nonsense. Come talk to Maddie. Maddie was our DM, and let's see what's up. Maddie was totally okay with me being at the table. She's like, sure, anything for a new face. This first session, I've got an NPC for you, and I had a blast. I absolutely had a great time. It was so much fun to get a chance to play with Ben and Paige instead of talking about playtesting and talking about, our rules and our games and industry stuff. It was just getting a chance to kick back and relax and play games with my coworkers. And it absolutely turned me around. By the end of that session, I was looking at Maddie being like, hey, I think I've got a character stashed in D&D Beyond that I could use for this. I mean, I don't know if it's 100% Adventure League legal, but I do know that he's only seen one adventure. He has no magic items. He's basically straight cut cloth bard, aside from a musket. And even then, it's all stuff that came out of the source book. So that night we go out to dinner, we have a good time, we spend many hours talking and just doing all of the things at conventions that I miss doing, and it made me go, you know what, Winter Fantasy was a bust for me as a GM, as a place to try and play Essence 20, but as a D&D player, a gamer, and just a general human being, it was amazing. It was awesome. And I came back the next day and I played. I jumped back in with Ben and Paige's group. Played their. Basically, I played the second and third chapters of their. Of their epic run or whatever. And the character I played we turned in the NPC, so I play my own character, and I played a GIF bard named Ruxla Thunderballs the Third. Balls being BAWS, as in to yell, to bawl, to cry. And we had a blast. It was so much fun. I can't wait to get Ruxler back on the table sometime with them. Or with anyone else. So I saved the character and was like, anytime I get an opportunity to play D&D with Ben and Paige, I'm bringing out Ruxler again. It was, I told them at the bar the second night, I told them at the bar that they absolutely saved my convention. They turned it around. They turned it from a demoralizing failure as a GM to an uplifting, enjoyable, fun event as a player. And I think that is the takeaway from that I'm going to say that I'm going to take away from this show is, if you are into D&D and you want to hook up with a really, really good group and a bunch of amazing people that know what they're doing, that hold their stuff together, that really do this whole Adventurers League thing a really cool way, check out Winter Fantasy, check out Baldwin Games, and I will probably go back to Winter Fantasy, barring other scheduling issues. but I think next time I know ahead of time that I will go as a gamer and not as a GM. I've already let Jordan know that this show was definitely not for us as a company. It is not. It is not that kind of show. It is a different kind of show, and it is very cool in its own right. Just not the way that an outside non D&D company is trying to possibly use it as a marketing avenue or something. So that's my thing. If you're big into D&D, especially if you're big into Adventurers League, get hooked up. Find them find the Winter Fantasy like webpage. Figure out what their Discord is. Start chatting. Start figuring things out. Maybe play some online games with them to kind of dip your beak a little. But whatever the case may be, Winter Fantasy is a really, really good show for what it is. And I want to make sure that I know that earlier I said there was a lot of miscommunication. And management did not really help me out very much, and that is all true. But that's talking from the perspective of a corporate GM coming in trying to peddle a new game. From the perspective of a gamer, show was fantastic. And I look forward to hopefully having another experience like that in the future, now that I know. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this episode, and why I wanted to be honest with you is, I could have easily said, Winter Fantasy is great, I had fun, and then just stop it there. But I wanted to be more detailed with you because I think you deserve it. People deserve to have the truth and not everything be sugar coated. But also, if the people at Winter Fantasy catch this, I want them to know that perhaps if you ever plan on opening your doors a little wider for some of the other gaming the other games out there, to get some other people in here to possibly get some more kind of universal walk-in type things, that maybe there's some work and some growth that needs to be done. But for the stuff that you're doing, the rest of it, you are kicking ass and taking names, and you're doing a great job. Because I went from almost turning around and driving home to, oh man, I hate that this is already over. And that says a lot. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I got to play games with coworkers that I never get to see, that I hadn't actually seen in person since we started working together. This was the first time that I was able to shake hands and hug these guys. But even if they weren't there, if I would have kind of stretched out my feelers and got into a D&D game and realized just how much work you guys do put into the Adventurers League side of things. I love the reroll tickets for charity, just all this really, really cool stuff. I really do think I'll be back next year, but I know better, and I'll come as a gamer, because I think that's going to be, if I know that going in, fun. Basically fun from Jump Street. I'll hit the ground running, and Lord Ruxla Thunderballs the Third will have a great time, and we'll just see from there. So again, thank you, Winter Fantasy, for having me. Sorry about all the miscommunication. Sorry about all the wackiness, and thank you to the GM Maddie or Madeline. I never caught her last name. And thank you to Ben and Paige and the other players at the table, who were a couple of kobolds. I can't remember their people names, but the kobolds I remember very, very distinctly is Mingy and Mudrick. I had a blast. I had a lot of fun. It was a good weekend for me. It ended up being a great weekend. I made some good friends. I got to see some old friends, and I absolutely look forward to it again. Just not with the pretense of being an Essence 20 GM. All right, aside from all that, please, 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 everybody, be safe. I haven't heard anybody coming back from the show being like, I've got COVID or anything like that. So hopefully made it through another show with missing that bullet. I want everybody to be safe. Get vaccinated. Wear a mask if you feel you need to. You know how it is. Leave every room a little happier than when you got there, and never forget. Play some games. We will see you next week for a special Warzone Eternal episode. Bye, guys.